That we will call the public meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? If there are, so in that case, we will move to the first session of public comments. The public comment policy is displayed on the screen. We do not have any members of the public here in the room, so we'll open it up to the online audience. And ask that you raise your hand if you have a public comment for this first session tonight. Everybody has one, please jump in, but next few seconds, because we're gonna move to Jaden and the student representative report. I think she's down there somewhere. There she is. Hey, Jaden.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. So to begin, some updates from the last time we had a meeting. Just to start off plainly, unfortunately, I was not able to attend the student representatives meeting in Concord due to some travel issues. Couldn't really get that checked. But on the contrary, I was able to be nominated for the school-wide Poetry Out Loud competition. I'm very excited for that. It is a public event, Wednesday, January 25th at 6. Come by if you like poetry or competitions. This is to go for the regional competition. The winner of the school-wide will represent our school, and that'll be held in mid-February. Excuse me. So recent events that have happened, the Conant Showcase, this was last Wednesday. There was a multicultural fair put on by the foreign language classes. There was the Mandarin Chinese class, Spanish classes, French classes, as well as art displays from AP Art, ceramics, etc. There was a STEM section, familiar faces, somebody's daughter over there. It was very nice to catch up with her, took some pictures. There was also a construction trades exhibit, which really highlights how excited we are for the CTE expansion. And there was also a concert in the Pratt for chorus and band. This week, CMHS is doing a countdown to December Break Spirit Week. Today was Red and Green Day, tomorrow's Ugly Sweater, Wednesday's Whiteout, Thursday's Holiday Hat and Sock, and Friday, of course, is Pajama Day. We're all very excited, counting down the days. In athletics, we hosted our first home varsity basketball game. Girls varsity had a big win. It was like 50-18 or something like that. And I had the privilege of suiting up on the cheer team, singing the national anthem, doing my thing. There have been wrestling meets with our new wrestling team. They're very excited about that for new opportunities they haven't had before. They are able to have a practice space not only on our campus, but also travel to Messinic. That's where they had their first meet. We also have a collaborative hockey team with Monadnock, both girls and boys varsity. They're very excited about that. And Hoops for Hope is coming up in January. And as NHS board member, I'm very excited to be putting that on this year. not too much news I was able to receive from JGS, but RMS is hosting a band and chorus concert this Wednesday, December 18th at 5:30 p.m. And that is all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Jaden. Any questions or comments for Jaden?
How was the attendance on that fair on Wednesday?
It was really good. There were obviously learners as well as family members and friends. There were also some community members. I spoke in depth with a professional linguist for quite a while. And he was like, "Hey, I saw that this was happening and all these foreign languages are coming around. I was just checking in." It was really nice to know that we're getting noticed by the greater community and not just friends and family. Obviously, friends and family being there to support is incredible, but just having that even larger outreach is phenomenal. And the fact that we're able to be held to a higher standard is incredible. So it was a really nice turnout, and there were some very exciting and impressive things. There was a cake decorating contest. They were very intricate designs. Some of them a little bit gravity defying. There was a Fruit Loops box pouring Fruit Loops onto the cake. I don't know how they did it, but I was very impressed. They took first place, I believe. Yeah.
So that's using STEM, like the best of STEM creative thinking, right? It's what we talk about when we talk about CTE and the way that it allows learners to learn, not just in the traditional way, but in using critical thinking and creative thinking. And that's a perfect example of that, right? Pretty cool.
They took the cake, that's for sure.
I can't even follow up with after that.
I try not to brag, but that was my daughter, I think, in her friend's cake. And I will say, like, she's been, making
Brag
a
away.
connection to STEM, but like the culinary arts program. That we're proposing. Certainly, I know of her and a lot of other, I think we've seen the data, right, that says the high interest, and we've heard about the competitions, but I can say that there's definitely a group of kids in the middle school and that age that are very passionate about, that sort of education, and are also, doing a lot on their own on the weekends. So again, to me, it's just about kind of expanding. That was a great opportunity with Mr. Baker, right? He was able to do it, and that's when I think about this CTE, just kind of the expansion of that, which is, a nice opportunity to something that's more of an everyday thing and a career path.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was not just an excellent display of capability, but also it was a sign that we're starting to evolve out of being afraid to express yourself, not only with dramatic performance or band and choral performance, but also with just outwardly expressing your hobbies. That's very difficult for middle school and high school age kids, and it's very refreshing to know that less and less people are afraid of having other people see them. It's really nice.
Thank you, Jada. I appreciate your enthusiasm for everything. I think it's great to hear that, level of positivity coming from the schools. And I think we certainly see it. We see a broad picture, but we appreciate your perspective. Because I think in a lot of cases, these things are what you make of it, and the attitude that you bring to it. And I think you're, from what I've seen, a good example of that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now we're gonna move to the superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm gonna share a couple of emails that I received today, along with some information that we discussed about the facilities committee also today. Try to keep it short because we have a lot more to talk about in the agenda. One thing that I received today was sent to the principal of this school from NEASC, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges Commission on Public Schools.
And it's dated today. And I'll read it in part, not the entire thing. We've known that they came here, they gave us some nice feedback, but I figured it would be nice just to kind of look at some of the things that they said. So in the second paragraph, the commission was impressed with the progress made on the priority areas for growth and increased alignment with the principles of effective practice since the last time they came to visit. And they were to be commended on the following. The inclusive process used to develop a vision of the graduate, which included students, parents, and teachers. The dedicated efforts of the school to complete written curriculum in a consistent common format. The commitment to a robust school improvement planning process with goals that drive decision-making in the school. The establishment of a cohesive identity as a single school. The emphasis on community service, extracurricular activities, and leadership programs designed to enhance the school's climate and culture. The efforts to create transparency with parents and the broader community through improved communication and new and ongoing initiatives. The purposeful professional learning opportunities that focus on both school-wide and self-identified areas of need and interest. The collaboration between faculty and staff, which has led to increased consistency in teaching. The support for learner well-being and academic success that is provided by a fully staffed counseling department. We'll talk about that tonight. And then the provision of common planning time for collaboration, reflection on data, and curriculum work, which has helped to solidify the school's growth mindset culture. The system of tiered interventions designed to promote the academic success of all learners. The development of PLPs by each student to help them meet their aspirations. The competency-based model used through the school, throughout the school, focused on using formative and summative work to provide feedback on the learner's mastery of the learning progressions for each course. The faculty's strong commitment to pedagogical practices focused on inquiry, higher order thinking, and authentic assessments, and the high expectations held by faculty for every student. And there's more, certainly, but I wanted to just show you that, and we can send you a digital copy of that. We'll post these things online.
Congratulations. That's a massive amount of work.
Well, congratulations to the
Team.
here
Yeah.
at this school.
Well done.
Yep, very good.
Yeah.
Another
Pleased.
email that I got is something that we've talked about a little bit before. Zoe Sine from Jaffrey Grade School got her master's in, I actually can't remember exactly the course itself, but basically outdoor education, adventure learning. And so she has walked several times the Route 202 area and seen possibilities and wants us to, rather than take the approach of let's build it and they will come, let's actually make something happen there. And maybe someday there'll be something built, but let's actually use the property and do some education there. And so she would like to, her focus would be SEL, social emotional learning through ropes courses and outdoor education. However, she's working with a committee to do a pilot program this coming summer that is maybe a subset of the summer programming for elementary for learners from both Jaffrey Grade School and Ringe Memorial School to be able to go onto that property and do their remediation or extension through outdoor learning. So using the environment out there. This is just an example of a grant that she's looking at, and as I looked into it briefly, I have to give some feedback to her, but something for, $500 to $15,000, depending on what your need is, and you got to be able to show it and meet certain criteria. She's had a couple other of a couple $1,000 grant offerings or opportunities to go for getting some of this started up. So I'm excited about this. Well, certainly she's very passionate, and there's a group of individuals who work with her, some from this school as well, that are looking at it kind of long term. But I'm excited because this is not me. This is not a principal, although we're certainly aware and we're supporting. This is a teacher who has a passion and is working with other teachers to create new programming in a sustainable way, or at least seeking to do it in a sustainable way for the future of this community. She's not getting paid any extra to do this. She's just excited, seeing the possibilities, and knows what kids need. So, I'm sure that down the road, there are going to be more community conversations around how the community can help make some visions a reality, but this work is going on. So kudos to her for taking a risk.
And she came to us, did she start here while she was still in college, or had she just graduated?
She may have just graduated,
Mhm.
yeah,
She's-
several years ago around the COVID timeframe.
Yep.
Yep. And then this coming Wednesday, we will have a few of us have our weekly meeting with the architects to talk about communication. And so they are committed to developing about a 3-minute video to help communicate all of what has been done so far and what kind of the end product is where we're at. Along with, after our conversations, I will put in information about the warrant article and then give them a script as to how, we want that explained, so that the warrant article, all these warrant articles are difficult to understand, right? I mean, you have to read them and reread them and really know, or be very educated on them in advance. If you were to go into a voting booth for the first time and see a warrant article that had 22 million, 6 million, this is what the tax impact is, this is, and all that language in between, up to, not quite, there, whatever the language is. Yeah, I mean, some people go in, yes, or I support this, or no, automatically, rather than really making an informed decision either way. That's what we really want, is for them to be informed. So another tool to use for communication. And so we'll have all that information to the architects on Wednesday. And we talked about the importance of CTE, so I don't need to continue on with that right now. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ruben? Superintendent's report? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. On this week's consent agenda, we have the manifests, accounts payable and payroll, 2 budget transfers, 3 nominations, 1 for athletic trainer, 1 for a preschool paraprofessional, and another for a high school counselor. So all 3 important positions that we've been looking to fill. And the stipend list.
If I could just mention the tuition private other schools for 100,000, that was on the last agenda, and we went late that time and we never made the motion and voted on this one when we pulled it out. Basically, it's the money, the answer to the question that was asked, what lines to what lines. It's going from a high school tuition private other schools line to a middle school tuition private other schools line. So it's the same category. The money is going to the same kind of location, but different age bracket.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Thank you, Lisa.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any questions or comments?
What is FFVP?
Thank you. I didn't want to ask.
Fresh fruit and vegetable program.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
Ridge didn't qualify last year, they qualified this year.
Just cool. Yeah, okay, awesome.
Thought that wouldn't run up your alley.
I was gonna say, it's in this cornucopia.
Just couldn't-
It's cornucopia. All right, very nice. Very nice. We're gonna get a sash for that one.
Yes, I was thinking.
With a little cornucopia hat or something like that. That would be good. Okay.
I would just like to say that I'm very excited that we're getting an athletic trainer.
Oh, yeah.
And
How excited are you?
I'm very excited because we've needed one. As a Conan athlete, as well as sustaining a major injury during sports, it would have been very helpful to have one. And now I'm happy that we will be receiving one, because I know that if this were to go on much longer without this role being filled, it would have made for far more injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
especially-
Or, and recovery from as well. I'm still currently recovering from my ACL tear, from last cheer season. And it's a year later, well, almost a year later. And I'm looking forward to, underclassmen and just those graduating after me, who are athletes and who are passionate about the sports that they, are part of, to be able to have extra guidance, especially with the safety of their body.
We had to get Todd in here just in time for the cheer season to start. We're like, Jaden needs this athletic trainer. I don't know who else does, but Jaden needs it, so. And we're very excited that, in the case of Todd, the athletic trainer, and Francisco, the high school counselor, both have quite a bit of experience in those roles, and they're bringing that experience with them to Conant Middle High School.
Very excited. Cause I know the counseling department has been, their heads have been ringing all year. Cause they've been one down, and, I'm very thankful for, especially, Mrs. Baker
Yeah.
for everything she's had to take on, especially the entire senior class all by herself.
And
I keep bringing this up.
it seems like she's doing a fantastic job. Kudos. And I hope this is the help she needs.
Yep, we went through several interviews with these individuals, so I'm excited about, met them all. So it's good.
Very good. Any more questions or discussions on the consent agenda items? In that case, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6-0. And we'll move on to the next item, the approval of the November 18th, 2024 school board meeting minutes.
I make a motion to accept the November 18th, 2024 minutes.
I'll second.
Christine, thank you, Kim. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the November 18th, 2024 minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions?
Here.
So that passes by a vote of 5-0. And we'll move to the November 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from November 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, Christine.
I second that.
Oops.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions or discussion? We'll bring that to a vote. All those in favor of approving the November 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6-0. And we move on to item number 8, the request to waive facility fees for the Ringe Recreation Department travel basketball practice. Looks like over the few days over the winter break.
I'll make a motion to accept the waiver of facility fees for these dates.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'll second.
And Kim, any questions or comments?
It's just, Ruben, I know you've done some work on getting an MOU and, just was curious about where that's at.
The MOU in Jaffrey is currently being signed by the Jaffrey members and hasn't come our way yet from that, but it's verbally agreed upon. And the one at Ringe, they want more fobs. And so I have to look at either providing them more fobs, which then they would say they would sign it, or I think we can provide more fobs, but we might need to spell out the process of it a little bit better within the MOU. So that's where we're at there. but everything else is agreed to.
How many fobs do they get now?
6. Both towns get 6. And then there's some language around who's allowed to have them. So, our issue from a school district standpoint, this is a historical thing, is that at one point, or for many years, certainly maybe for decades, everyone had keys and ability to access. When I say everybody, I mean a lot of people had keys and access. And so we're in an area, in a time frame when safety is something we have to really take very seriously. And so allowing a lot of that access to be out there is something we have to be very mindful of, setting parameters around. So now fobs, we can limit the timeframes that they're able to be used. So that's,
And so you could do it like weekends only or
Yes.
after school hours.
yes,
only
we can do
things like
that. So that's fine. But some of these fobs come with keys too.
Okay.
So those you can't necessarily do that with. So we have to be very careful with who has them and to make sure that those people are fingerprinted and that they're abiding by rules and so forth. You know, I understand the reason why people would want more of them because, kudos to the Ringe Recreation. That's evidenced by the number of times that you see them on our agenda.
Mhm.
They're doing a lot of programming and they're using our facilities a lot. So if they have a lot of, basketball teams, for instance, during this time frame, you'd have a lot of coaches.
I was over here chuckling because a parent offered to buy my fob off of me. I thought he was joking. And he said, name your price. And I was like,
Can you just kind of like send that parent to me? Just joking. Gary. Sorry,
Just-
wouldn't do that.
and I would say this is a person, very good family. You know,
Oh my gosh, weird.
it's like,
No, since I've been here, there's been a desire to have access to this building, in particular the gymnasium.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories to tell, but we won't.
mhm.
That would take some time.
Any further discussion on this one request? All right, we'll move that one to a vote. All those in favor of approving this request for the travel basketball practice, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6-0. And we will move to the first of our 2 action items, the first one being the CTE 4-year regional agreement to discuss.
Yeah, so I can speak to this right here. We'll just pull I don't think it's showing at this point in time. I think there was a little bit of a mishap. Basically,
I got it on mine.
Mhm.
the 4-year regional agreement, we've been in the practice of doing these 20-year agreements with the CTE. The state, the superintendents from Messina, superintendent from Conval, and myself have gotten together several times over the past month because of some new regulations that have been put through. Basically, the summary of this 4-year agreement is it's 4 years instead of super long. So it doesn't lock you into as long of an experience. You have to revisit it more often. And part of that reason is because the Department of Education is basically taking themselves away from CTE. So the Department of Education is all but removed itself completely from this agreement. Commissioners removed from the agreement. So that's the summary of what the changes are. We mimicked the changes that had been approved in a couple other school districts already. They've gone through this. We have till January to be able to accept this and get this done. So without seeing it right now, I would suggest not taking a vote, but by the next time, we're going to want to be able to approve this. I know that Conval and Messina could have this on their agenda to approve as well. It doesn't change really much of what we're doing. It's still really the same, except for, I think, I don't know. We'll see what it means down the road. I don't know what it means when the Department of Ed is being removed from this.
So do they used to be an approver on it or,
Yep, they're not a
Okay.
approver anymore.
so it's
School,
just,
school boards are this all local control. More so than it already was.
right, right.
It's bizarre.
And the content of it is largely the same as the previous agreement.
The content is similar.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know certainly at the CTE meetings, one of the questions that came about was, I think as we're investing in, hopefully a new center, being sure that, we have our students, right? Because we're gonna be paying the money, our students will have the priority. And I think the language in there, I'm assuming is the same as it was, where Jaffrey, or the receiving district would have 75% of the
Mhm.
seats and the other two, 25%.
Yeah.
That's the way I read it.
That's how it starts off, but if there are more
Yeah,
seats, then they would
yeah.
offer them to those first, and then if there are still more seats, they would
Yep.
put them out further beyond
Yep.
that. Yes, that's what the
That's how it
language
works.
is.
And
saying.
it just, I think we'd want to be very clear on that as we, build a new center that, yes,
Mhm.
if your student, of course, we are part of a cooperative, so
Yep.
we won't have 100% of the seats, but we'll have 75% of the seats. That seems to me fair, because again, the agreement goes the other way as well, but if it were like 50 or below, I think there'd be some concern, sure, so. It makes sense to me.
And then. So we'll put that on the next agenda.
Sounds good.
And finalizing of the warrant. So this is a presentation. I think what I'll do is I'll pull up this from my PowerPoint. Just do that. Okay. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about the budget proposal, CTE proposal. While I don't have confirmation that anything has been ratified yet, we still need to go forward and put together a warrant article for cost items that are in the tentative agreement for JREA proposal that centers largely around nurses. And we need to wrap all of that up within the next month. Special education trust proposal, maintenance trust proposal, and then just a general discussion about sustainability, which I don't really have any extra slides for that. It's more of a conversation that could either happen at the end or just be woven all the way through. It all depends on how the flow of this goes and when questions arise.
So I get, just for clarity before we start, is there? Just thinking of kind of meeting structure and format, are we gonna be as a board? Proving the draft language tonight, or how do?
I think-
Obviously, it's up to us, but I'm just looking to align with you on what the expectation is. as
Yes,
far
I would
as-
expect that.
This is our last meeting, I think, scheduled meeting anyways, this year.
Yeah.
So I want to be sure that we're on track with meeting the deadlines. So are there any votes that we're gonna need to take tonight, or is it just an agreement? So,
Yeah, this is under action so that we can vote on these warrant articles
Okay.
tonight. And certainly if Carrie has anything to add, which she will, I hope.
I just wanted to say that the draft is still subject to bond counsel and legal counsel approval for the language. Legal counsel has already reviewed it and it appears that it's fine. However, bond counsel, I'm waiting for them to get back to me because that's going to be important. So if the board just approves the numbers and the general content of how they wish to proceed with the warrant articles, I can finalize the legal pieces of it after.
sounds good.
Okay. So the first is the draft budget warrant article. So the language is similar to what it is every single year, but the numbers since the last meeting have gone down. We'll talk about how that was arrived at. And you can see here that the budget being proposed tonight is $33,760,452. That the default budget is approximately 100,000 higher, a little bit less than that, 33,858,458. And you can see there the estimated tax impact. It's estimated because sometimes we're able to give money back. It's usually not more than that. Has never in my time here been more than what has been on here. It's usually been less, but you know, thankfully last year we were able to manage the budget in a way that you know, part of it is difficult because of how we were able to save money, or it was not so much how we could save it, but the fact that we did because of not being able to hire in certain areas and still being able to get our job done. But we were able to give the taxpayers money that would help alleviate things for this year, and I believe that that did take place in both towns, Rindge and Jaffrey. I think perhaps a little bit more in one than the other one, but I think that's good. That is not the case. That is not the story in most locations. And so while that's not the norm, that's not something that likely can be done every single year. We're very glad that, you know, that could be done for this year, as it's important.
And these numbers were updated for the latest budget. Here, the tax impact.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't remember them off the top of my head. Okay.
So the last time we met, we talked about finding 2% and 4% from where we were at. And so I think in kind of reverse order of this slide, different than years past, we took all those items that are kind of in that shopping list for this year, if we can, and didn't even put them in the budget because we usually end up removing the past 2, maybe even 3 years, we've removed them and found a way to make it happen. So we didn't even put that $500,000 in. And it's a little more than $500,000. Also, we to get to this number, to get to that between, I would say 3.3, 3.4% is where we're at. We removed some trend information. Now, last year, there was conversation about, hey, we gave back 1.8 million. We should start from a spot of what we actually spent and so forth. It's important to remind the board and the community that a significant amount of that, around 800,000 or so, came from not being able to hire various positions, mostly in the area of special education. There are other monies that came back to us because of revenue, and Carrie can probably even talk a little bit more if we have you know, any further questions as to how things operated. But it's not that we didn't need those roles. It's not that we wouldn't have filled them had we been able to last year. Even this time, we just filled 2 positions that we hadn't been able, one of them hadn't been able to fill for 3 years, but it was in the budget last year. And so those types of things, as we are more successful in hiring, which we have been more successful this year than we were last year. And I suspect that if our culture continues to be, you know, stronger, individuals from other places where the culture is perhaps lacking a little bit might want to come over to a school district that is paying appropriately, as well as provides them an environment where they feel that they can instruct in a way that it aligns with their beliefs. So I think we are that school, and we're seeing those individuals come on board. You're right. There's like some of these positions just aren't even out there, right? They are out there. They're just out there in small quantities. And so we're all looking for this through the same pool. If we are the school that is more desirable to work at, which there have been many people who have come in the last couple of years where they have indicated this is so much better. This is the best place I've been able to work at. I feel like I was not gonna stay in education, but this was my last shot. I now have been reinvigorated. Those types of things, the more that takes place, the more you're gonna be able to fill those positions. Nevertheless, what we did was we have in the past, there's enough trend data over the last decade to say that student services is where we are likely to save if we're going to have any monies to save, whether it be, it's been different for different reasons, whether it's out of district placements, sometimes don't happen the way that we envision them. We budget as what is known now, or staffing. Lately, it's been more staffing than the placements. But in order to do this, we took the $500,000 out of the out of district placement because we just needed the money out of student services. I'll tell you why we didn't decrease it we didn't take it and just like chop the FTEs off and say, hey, we didn't hire them, so we don't need the positions. We do need the positions. We also don't want to have in our budget something that says, oh, we didn't, we'll hire the positions if we need to, if we get a chance to, but we're taking them out. If we take the positions out, let's put a hypothetical situation, and we were brought to a court due process, and the individual said, you didn't give us what our child needed. And we said, yeah, we did everything we possibly could. And they take a look at your budget and say, look, you didn't even budget the positions that you say that you were going to provide to us. We need to have on paper and that we've communicated in the public what it is we are going to provide. And so we do need to provide those positions and that support, or at least the support and the positions is the typical way on how to provide that. Regardless, we've removed a blanket $500,000 from the budget that way. Based upon the conversation from last time, staffing was the $800,000+ savings. And so we also ended up taking out roughly, and this is on a different slide, but roughly $300,000 also out of other employee lines. Not FTEs. We did not reduce any FTEs. That is an option if we want to go further. But what we did, because we were asked to be creative a little bit, over the years, Carrie and I have been able to fine tune what we budget open positions as. We've found it to be pretty much on target with Masters Step 5. And lately that's been very much the case because we have either been hiring people at the very beginning of the scale or well into the scale. We haven't found as many people right in the middle, but they average out that way. We decided that we could take a healthy risk by doing the following. In looking at some of our data around new teachers and what they take for health insurance and so forth. Mind you, if someone wants the family plan, they get the family plan. If they want a 2-person plan, they get a 2-person plan. There's nothing that stops that from happening, even if we budgeted lower. But we budgeted at Bachelor Step 1, and we budgeted 1-person plans. So that enabled us to save around $285,000 just by budgeting those positions, those open positions, differently. Now, if we're successful in filling all those, we are going to be in a bit of a deficit in that area, which means we have to manage the budget in a different way. But we feel like this doesn't take away what we indicate we want to provide, what we need to provide our learners in our community. And it is a different way of, it's not as safe a way of budgeting, but we think we have the funds to be able to back that up. If we were to have an issue, we do have a special ed trust fund that we could help help with that. We do have some other funds that we could be able to use if we were in a pinch. But we also it would buy us enough time to help look at the rest of the budget and manage it once the hiring process is over with. If we find out very early on that our hiring is like, oh, we're 200,000 over, then we can take a look at everything else and change spending patterns and all that kind of stuff early on. So positions, we know early on kind of what's happening. So that's the bulk of where the money came from. Other areas within staffing that we took that from, let me get to that slide, it's all right here, is we had proposed out of the SAU lines to add 3 support positions. These were part-time positions with the idea of like, if we could get some retired skilled educators to come on over and help us in some areas, we could do that less expensively. But we did take that 80,000 out. Those positions were for the purpose of McKinney-Vento or homeless liaison. We have a couple administrators right now sharing that load. There is quite a bit of work that is involved in that, and we do have a growing need in that area. That's all I'll say there, but it's been busy. Along with, that, the other needs have arisen. Earlier this year, we had some high needs for just providing investigations. We're in a good place right now, so but it was for the districts because different schools get busy at different times when either discipline happens, those things can add up. But to get someone who would be like a short-term or part-time administrator to come in and do some investigations and then be able to hand that over so that decisions can be made and we can keep on providing what we really want to do is providing as much support in the classroom for teachers as possible to help them with their craft. And then there was one more, which was the liaison or the truancy officer. And so we will still have to find out within our budget and within our processes a different way to kind of piece all those together. And if we take that out, or find money in there to still be able to do this. But that won't be something we'll have to wait till school starts at that point in time to be able to determine how best to move forward. Co-curriculars, a lot of our taking out the New Hampshire retirement, it's been reduced by 31,000. Again, that's position oriented. It's not removing the co-curricular positions. It's just that a lot of our positions are still not staff of the school. And so those individuals, we don't pay New Hampshire retirement for. Now, we have a growing number of individuals in the area of clubs and activities who are. So removing that much there is a risk of us going into the negative in that area, but it's a less risky area because of the balance of outside employees. Revenue reduction, that doesn't do anything to your taxes, but it's just saying we're not going to expect as much revenue. But that does increase the overall line, the number itself, which is, I think, sticker shock. And then, and there are some downsides to that. Do you want to talk about the revenue?
That was also a reduction on the expense side too.
Yes.
So it was a wash. That was
Mhm.
reducing the increase to the special revenue grant fund. Instead of increasing it by 130,000, that was brought down to 45,000. So that also reduces the revenue because the grants, the expenditures are offset by revenues.
And then we talked about the bachelor step 1 and the single health insurance, and that saved us about 285,000 to bring it down. So when going back a couple slides, when we look at the default, you'll see that some of those items are changed. The specific item that changes in the default is the student services placements. That was, I think that number last time was over 600,000, so that's down. Some transportation also, I think, is removed from there as well from the default because of that. That's pretty much the only change really to the default. But you can't reduce, when it comes to positions, you can't, especially if it's student services, you can't reduce the proposed without reducing the default. So, it's fine. You get two choices that are lower amounts.
So how much lower is the default based on?
I think it's like 600,000, right?
Reduced it by about
I
600,000
think it's
last time.
So the total decrease from the proposed is. The last proposed is like 1.2 million, which was 600,000 over default, so I think it's. You know, the default's gone down by 600,000 and overall proposed 1.2 million. So those are the numbers that I got.
Mhm.
Which I
Pretty close to 1.2.
I think is in line with, you know, what was asked for at the last meeting.
Right, thank you.
And as for the proposed,
But I mean, so yeah, so we talked about what we took out, so
Yeah.
what's left? Right? No, I think it's important, like this. That's a lot that was taken out, a lot of those,
a lot of money was taken out.
yeah,
A lot of money. So again, nothing, well, apart from the things we were trying to add,
Right.
of the 80,000, nothing was removed that wasn't already removed from, so we had already removed, because understand there's another 600,000 here.
Yeah.
That wasn't even in this, of things that we need to do, and we're going to do. So we'll hit that in just a little bit, but so we've removed money, which means we are budgeting this based upon the fact that we've had surplus. And so, and that surplus is going to come from similar areas that it has come from. Now, our surplus has varied. We've been as little as 200,000 and as much as last year. Last year was definitely the high. So somewhere in the middle, we've often had that 500,000 surplus from student services. Probably 7 out of the last 9 years, probably around that level. Sometimes it's been very close. So I think it's reasonable to understand that, but we also have some backup for that if need be. If hiring stays similar to what it has been, you know, this is a budget that is going to work. If we hire everyone that we are intending to hire, all the positions, and if they happen at a similar rate that we've been experiencing, then we will have to manage our budget very tightly. It can be done. And so we haven't removed any programming to kids in this budget. We haven't removed any staff in this budget. We haven't removed any increases compensation wise in this budget. We can't remove any of the contractual elements, and nor that we should be very happy the community voted and supported the JREA contract and the JRSSA contract. And while it's difficult to see a budget go up by, say, $1 million, $1.5 million because of all of that, I want to remind people how fortunate they are. One, you have really dedicated, intelligent, gifted teachers in this district. They care about these kids. They care about the community. Two, they're dedicated. So taking that and kind of going down a bullet, you wouldn't have been able to get through last year with the few numbers of staff that we had without people doing a lot more than what they are typically hired for. Okay, things worked out well last year, but it does come at a cost. People can only do that for a period of time. Three, we're still better staffed than most districts, and it's becoming a little bit better. We'll see how next year goes, but right now we're in a halfway decent place. Not perfect. And we have, over the past couple of years, been able to retain staff by and large. My first 7 or so years, it was definitely a rotating door, 15, 25%. All right, so that if we go into next year and have retained, we will have had a pattern of retention. So we've had a couple years of good retention. That's important. A lot of places don't have that. This school district and this community has that. Holding on to it is powerful. It's something that you don't want to lose. And so I'm very grateful for the support that the taxpayers have provided in those areas. But it does cost more as time goes on.
Can I ask here? This, did miss last meeting, which is unfortunate, but the theme of the budget is attract and retain.
Retain.
Right?
Yep.
So there are these 3 positions where we heard were very important for staff retention. And I'm sorry to say this in this phrase, but it's just $80,000. Why are we taking out those positions if they're so important to retaining staff?
Well, I mean, I think why are we taking out a lot of the funds? I think we're taking out the money for those positions. And like anything else, we're going to take and reevaluate once we're a couple weeks into school, who we've hired, where we stand with hiring. And if we can, we'll still go after those. We're not saying no to that. We're saying, can we find another way, or can we, figure something else out? I don't know.
But if the other way is.
And another way is having people take on extra roles and we're compensating them for that internally, then we can do that too. That, as much as it's nice to receive an extra 5,000 or an extra 6,000 or whatever like that, I think it's probably even very useful for people to have that extra income. I would imagine it is time, it is stress, and it does take its toll if it continues year after year. So it's not a sustainable thing. And more people who are hired, and even the people who are currently in the system, are wanting quality of life. That's a big deal. They want to be paid appropriately and feel good about what they're doing, and be able to pay their bills and save and so forth. But also they want to be able to be part of something that they believe in, and also where it's not consuming their entire life. Again, we have super dedicated people and they give a lot, but we do need to find sustainability.
I feel like you're making my argument for me.
You are, I am.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think that we just have to find a way for that for another year. Not lose sight of it. Especially for probably the McKinney-Vento, the homeless liaison one. I think we're going to see that in years to come continue to be a high need. And what legally needs to be done is enormous.
And it also just seems that these are pretty heavy tasks.
They are.
And so adding them on to an administrator or teacher, a full-time job is asking a lot more than can be compensated through $5,000 or $6,000.
Yep. Takes its toll. So. And we might be able to rotate, responsibilities to, different people and have some cross training and so forth. We have to, we have to problem solve. And I think that, again, we have a history of problem solving. A few years back when we had the default budget, this school in particular problem solved. This entire staff got together and figured it out in like an evening on how to move forward, and awesome. It was amazing. Jen Horn and Jaffrey Grade School working together for the implementation of, with the board's blessing, of course, of the restorative classroom, and then going and doing it again. We know that this budget would be $400,000 to $500,000 higher if we didn't have that program that just got approved by the state for 6 years. Should have probably mentioned that in my report. Yeah, they just came for a visit, assessed, said you're good to go for 6 years. K through 5. Asked Jen, we talked about each individual in depth. I can't talk about the individuals or anything about them, but we can say that tuition and transportation, it's even with the cost of staffing, it nets out to a savings of about $500,000. Now that's, if it stays like that, that's every year. Once you send learners to out of district placement, not only are you, not having them be part of your community, which has long-term effects that are way more important than money. But we don't get those kids back from a financial standpoint. So once you write that check, you're writing a check for multiple years. And so keeping them in here, creating a different type of pattern, you're saving that $500,000 every single year. It's just unfortunate. It's really hard to show people that this budget would be so much higher. Just like last year when we talked about the negotiation years ago with the health insurance. Yeah, we went up, what, $300,000, $350,000, almost $400,000 across the district with health insurance here. That's our highest increase in the last decade. There are places that went up $1 million by itself last year, and again, this year it's going to happen. So it's not that prices aren't going up. They're going to continue to go up. We're able to still make sure that they don't go up as much. That's what we're trying to do. And we've been creative sometimes, and we're looking to build more programming regionally now for student services, but it takes time. And the state's unfortunately not helping, and that's fine. That's how it is. It's not going to change this year. So we are, along with this, there's this one more slide to show, just to kind of put it in perspective, is Carrie and I have gone through, oh, that didn't pop up. Apologize, I can look at it in a different way. Oh, it didn't. I've lost it. Okay, well, anyway, we have a set of items that we indicated from PA work, wireless access points, Chromebooks. We removed Chromebooks from this again, so having to get those, sound systems, furniture, curriculum, all of that. What we've done is we put things into green and yellow. We didn't have anything that was red, unnecessary. To do about $500,000 of purchasing now. We've identified that we have that ability to do that. And then to do it again, see what we have by March 1st, to see what we can do for another round. Much less, money the second time around, but we don't feel comfortable going any further than that. We will have to, during that time frame, ask people to check their POs, see if they still intend to spend in certain ways, see if our placements are the same. So much changes within 2 months period of time. So,
Ruben, I'm not sure if it matters if anybody wants to see it, but if you push those red letters, it comes up.
the red letters,
You go on to the reminder, not in the budget proposal. Back in the slideshow.
okay, I'll try that again.
I just did it and got it, so. Looks like you've lost everything.
Yeah, I think I've lost everything here. Wait for 1
So if
second.
people want to look, it is there. You do have it there. Just push the red letters and it will come.
Trying to
Just trying to at least get back.
put the multiple displays up.
Is there any chance it was already open? Your Excel is open at the bottom.
Okay.
There you go.
So right here, this is at 200%. Let me put it down to 150. So you can see right over here, these are some of the items that, all right, we'll do this again. Apologize for those who are watching at home.
It's Monday after all.
Duplicate displays. Try again. Any changes? Okay. So again, the JGS, some of this is, are facilities related. The PA work that was cited as needing is important for the safety first and foremost, but also for the general runnings of each of the schools. This is technology, necessary technology, servers, access points, and we replace a few wireless access points every single year. It's just kind of a rotation, similar to our Chromebooks. The servers, on the other hand, are kind of up for their age. And then sound systems, both at RMS and JGS. So when we get down to JGS, you'll see that. Getting that furniture, that high-end cost item right there for the library to finish off the library remodel over at RMS. Some items for the athletic trainer to be able to do the job. Some curriculum items over in the middle school, high school. Cafeteria tables, which is really a facilities item over at Jaffrey Grade School, and their sound system, the sound system's a lot less expensive. That's been quoted to us for JGS because of the size of the structure. And then we have some SAU CMHS room remodels that we've been trying to do since summertime. And so we can figure doing it out of the budget as opposed to the maintenance reserve. The gray is the maintenance reserve trust fund. Is kind of what we would use for those items right there for the RMS canopy and the parking lot lighting that we would hope to do during the summertime. And blinds, again, important for the completion of some of the renovations, but also for the safety in those areas. And then anything that's in yellow would be, we look again, not, we plan to get, but would be looking at that in March, at the beginning of March to get. The PA work, because of the costs, would have to go to bid. Mike is aware of this. And so that will have to be done sooner than later. And so it will take some time, but the other ones can be purchased fairly quickly. There are some MOUs that we've been discussing, but we have to wait a little bit longer for some other decisions to be made prior to talking about any cost items around that.
And my understanding, the green is January proposal, the yellow is March proposal.
Yeah, green starts tomorrow if we, move forward, with things.
I have a bizarre question. It
Yeah.
might not be, number 24, the high jump landing system.
Yes,
Can that be moved to January simply so that if it was moved, it was in March. It doesn't sound like that would probably be in place for when the season would start. If we do it in January, then that might be something that can be offered. If we're not able to offer it simply because of this. I'm having multiple kids in track and field and these fields, I think that's a very exciting, highly attractive thing to be able to offer kids.
mhm. We very well may be able to do that. We would have to look outside of the lines that we have identified in order to do that, so.
Look at me like that, Karen.
Yeah, we'd have to figure that
I
one
can't
out.
believe she's making me work harder 5 days before Christmas.
I know. So. Again, these items were never placed in the budget. So going back to this. Let's do that again. I thought I had a slide here regarding, I'm gonna go down a little bit. Yep. Nope. Here we go. It's just in the wrong place. The budget proposal that we have, in order to get to that 4%, we would need about another $250,000. And so Carrie and I, in looking at what we've done here, are uncomfortable taking another $250,000 out just willy-nilly, and understand that this budget, it's not like just saying, oh, let's just remove 2% out of every line. You have no idea the number of transfers that would have to be done once that, I mean, the amount of work, I'd have to hire someone to make sure that that budget could even be like managed, because it would require so much work to do that. So we took it out of smaller, areas where there are fewer lines, so that we could manage the budget better that way. Taking any more out of student services, I think is risky. And I don't know where else you would get another $250,000 without 75 to 80% of the budget is staffing. It has to come from staffing. I did not put any support staff up here because if we have support staff, custodians, people who are in the front office area, paraprofessionals, they're in the budget because paraprofessionals are in the budget largely due to the fact that their positions are written to IEPs. Custodians, we are always in need of the ones we have, let alone, fewer of them. And the same thing for front office staff. I mean, the workload alone is never decreasing. And the number of hoops that we have to jump through and the amount of accuracy that we have to have keeps on increasing. So we need the positions that we do have. And then so you have some teaching positions, you have administrative positions, you have salaries. I certainly don't recommend any of them. I think that student teacher ratio wise. We could look at elementary at the Jaffrey Grade School as being in pretty good, healthy position. The problem is that if you remove a position from JGS, let's say they could get by with one less position or one fewer position, let's say one or two. They have to, because they're a Title I receiving school and they receive approximately $350,000 to $400,000, sometimes in some years it's been more, $1,000 for the positions that they have. If they can't show that they have comparability with RMS, then they lose that funding or they risk losing that funding. So you have to show that you have enough staff at JGS, you know, relative to the number of students you have, the ratios have to be a certain way, such that the way you use your Title I funds is not supplanting, it's providing more support. So Title I has to be complete extra support over and above and not supplanting. So it's not like, oh, well, I can remove 2 positions here and just take it up in Title I. No, that's called supplanting. That's not right. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. So you'd be able to maybe use Title I for a year, but they'd get on you about that. And as for student services, reducing student services, just in general, there's also rules and regulations about that. By and large, you're supposed to remain the same. And you could probably explain this better than I, but you remain the same year after year or more. They expect special ed costs to go up unless you have very specific documentation as to why, and clear documentation as to why it might go down. Such as we had 13 learners move out of district.
That's IDEA funding.
IDEA, yes, special ed funding, IDEA funding. So anything to do with those federal funds, we have to be careful how we locally budget so that we are not endangering our ability, and that's close to $500,000 as well.
What does IBA stand for?
IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education
Act.
Yeah, so it's
Thank you.
federal funds for student services. So there are some limitations to a couple different pockets of our budgeting. But if there is a number that this board feels it needs to be, and it needs to be lower, you have the conversation and the right to do that. We will come back with what we think is the most responsible way to approach it.
What do you think, Charlie? Oh, Charlie, it's not here. Never mind.
Well, since I spoke last time and sided with the Jaffrey Charlie, I'm pleased with what's done. I think 4.13% is, it's up. I don't know what you want me to say, but I understand the reason it's up. There's costs that we can't touch. You know, in signing the manifests, I realized there were things that we can't touch, we can't change. There's things that we're mandated to do. You know, the budget's, it's still 1.3 million more than last year's budget, but everything's gone up. You know, I don't know. I think it's a fair budget. I'd like to say I'd like to see 2%, but that's not going to happen. You know, it's just not going to happen. It's not feasible without cutting services, and I don't think we can do that. So I'm pleased with the work that was put into this.
I completely concur. I'm really, the work that you guys did to take theory, make it practical, and really heard us. I'm really, really pleased. And I want to thank you for that language, that word fair,
Yeah.
fits, it just does. I appreciate that work very, very much. I know it's incredibly hard to know what's coming and feel like we're not as prepared for all eventualities as we could be. I get that, but what you guys put together is fair. And I'm really grateful that you went back to the table with this.
I had someone explain to me recently that a school budget can basically be summed up by saying the cost of everything that it takes to go into a quality education, into providing a quality education, minus state funding equals the budget. It's kind of simple when you think about it that way. I believe that this is a good budget, and when we present it, we need to emphasize that any more cuts would reduce the quality of education.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Agreed, good points. I get, when I saw it, I couldn't believe that you reduced it the way you did. That's a lot of work. You guys are awesome. I mean, it's just. And like you said, just now, I was thinking about it before I came and I was like, gonna step over and I'm like. You wanna offer the kids things, you wanna have a place where people are proud of, and it costs money to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, truly stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and they did a great job with it. Everybody, finance, budget, everything. Well done.
John?
I think that there's a lot of things to emphasize that we're doing that have been done by the district. Giving back the amount of money we gave back this year, we can't count on doing that every year, but we gave that money back, and that made a big impact, and people could be reminded of that. And if there's money that we can't spend next year, even though we legally need to have those positions in the budget, but if they're not filled, there'll be more money coming back. We can't say exactly how much, we don't need to, but there's a number of things that Ruben's covered tonight that, are things, again, to remind people of the MTSSB, is it a 5-year grant? $250,000 a year that, we acquired due to the activism of the district and the administration and going after that money and our reputation. The restorative classroom and the savings. Now, people can't understand that. I mean, how would they, we're on the board, we hear about it a lot, but the average citizen, though, can be reminded that things have been done to reduce out of district placements, and that's saving us money. It's been doing that, we hope to. The health insurance, I know Ruben's mentioned it year after year, but just to explain to people why that, what the difference was, that as a part of the collective bargaining agreement, was it 7 years ago now, that decision has resulted in health insurance costs that have been lower for our district than they have been for the surrounding districts. And this year we got a 12% increase, but a lot of the other districts have had those kind of increases regularly. The furniture donation from SNU, those kind of things, try and upgrade our facilities. So things are being done, and again, it makes it, it's good. So I think this is a good budget.
Yeah. I think those words, reasonable, fair, are appropriate. I think all of us that, are involved with the schools and see what goes on here and, take the time to learn about here, knows that, we're not swimming in a sea of excess here, right? And any suggestion otherwise is misinformed, I'll say kindly. If you talk to parents, if you talk to students here, I think they'll tell you the same thing. They'll say that our most valuable asset here is teachers, and we don't have a lot of extras here, and fair or not, that's the reality that we're living in, right? I do. I spend a lot of time in this school and other schools, and it's hard sometimes, right? When you go to another school, the kids are like, wow, look what these kids have, right? I think there's a lot of us here that, would want to provide maybe more of those things, but I think the reality is that we need to focus on the core of education and continuing this path that we're on and doing the most with what we have, as we, balance that impacts to the taxpayer. And I think this does that. And I was just kind of, maybe we can take this offline after, Carrie, but I would like to look at those like tax impact numbers. And I think the second version maybe included some other things, and I don't know, I don't
We
want to,
did, yeah.
I don't want to derail us now because I'm sure you're probably correct and it just needs to explain to me.
It included the warrant articles.
Yeah. So,
That's why.
included the warrant article, so I wasn't seeing that difference. That's kind of what I figured out. So that tax impact, right, that we're seeing of
You're seeing the total.
that we
warrant
showed
articles
earlier of the
combined.
374 and the 246 shows all of the things together.
Well, that shows just that warrant article. So if you were looking at the estimated revenues and taxes, let me see.
Yeah.
I
like
don't
said,
remember which ones were which, but
I don't want to
That's-
derail us.
yeah,
Maybe
we
we
can
can
talk
look at
later.
it afterwards, but
Yeah.
certainly, the numbers aren't lining up to me. But I think regardless of that, we can figure that out, and I'm sure you're accurate there, but being able to explain that. And again, I think looking back at last year, we were fortunate to, Jaffrey's tax rate went down 86 cents. Ringe's down a penny. This year there'll be a different impact, but I think our job is to provide this education without, decreasing services, and that's a balance. So it's a long way of saying I agree with what, everybody here is saying, and I think we should move forward with, this budget as proposed.
So should we approve warrant articles one at a time? Or as a group?
Well, I'd like to go through the other ones first, so you see all cost items first, because you might say, oh, let's go back and revisit this number one, because there other numbers here impact what you do. And so, going to Article 2, we have a couple different drafts of this. And we actually have probably 3 or 4 others as well, depending on Gordon.
Yeah.
May have given us a bunch. Like, hey, if you want to do this, you can do this and this. Yeah, so thank you, Gordon. This is confusing language, but this first one, to sum this one up, is the total project is roughly 22,895,000. That's the number that we've been given from our architects, from the estimators and so forth. And it's to authorize the acceptance of not less than 16 million. And to authorize the board to go and get a bond for not more than 6,849,000. Those represent the amounts if the state continues to fund, as they have in the past, all the other locations that they funded at a 75-25 split of allowable costs. Again, there's about $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million that aren't allowable costs in all of this, such as site work and so forth. Now, I recommend that we try to, and you'll see this down the line a little bit later tonight, that we fundraise for some of these costs. But this is one approach. Another one is the CTE language actually states between 50 and 75%. So this is the worst case scenario. number. So let's say they said, we can't fund you, but we'll fund you this percent instead of the 75, kind of like what they're doing with special education, like, oh, you don't need all that catastrophic aid, we'll fund it at 63% instead of 80%. Again, a reason why we're, in the budget saying, we might not get that revenue anymore. That stuff it's getting tighter and tighter. More and more money's going to other things in the state as opposed to public education. So this is that same amount, that total amount, and then saying not less than 10.7 million, basically, and not more than, on our part, 12 million. That's a 50-50 split of allowable costs. Now, there might be some that were a mixture of these, but wanted to kind of see how the board wanted to move. At one point, I was under the impression that, hey, we won't be going forward with this building project unless we get the 75-25 split. I'm not sure that's what everyone thinks. It's certainly not what we're going to be pursuing, this 50-50 split here. If you go the other avenue and they say, hey, we're only going to fund it, I don't know, let's say 60-40. Do we look to reduce the scope of the project and accept it that way? Which is a little different than what you would have been broadcasting to people for the money that they've, approved. So you can see the difficulty here with how things are funded.
So
And
if
the
the
time-
way it's funded is changed, we don't go back and talk to people about it, we just kind of.
Well, you've got a couple different ways of going about things. If the state chooses to fund this at a specific rate, let's say a little bit less than this, and we only get, let's say 15 million instead of 16 million. So it says not less than 1646. So in this case, you can't go forward.
I don't like that language.
So you have to
'Cause
be
then-
some certain
You know,
on your
I-
warrant articles. The DRA won't let you not put them out. So the difference between this one and the other one is if you go with the other one, it's giving you the safety of saying, worst case scenario, we only get 50%. This allows us to get a bond of up to 12 million. But if we get more aid from the state, we don't have to take as many out in bonds. Because it says not less than 10 million. So if we get, I'm sorry, I'm reading it.
You're right.
I'm bouncing around a little bit
Yeah.
here. So it gives us the ability, say we get 60%. We'll be getting more in state aid and we can take less in bonds. The other one pretty much caps us and says if we don't get the 75%, there's no moving forward. The problem is you're asking voters to approve a higher bond.
Yeah, which is a big problem.
Right.
Let's just say theoretically, they give, with the first one, they give us like $1 less, right? Certainly I would prefer to cut the scope of the project by $1 and not by that doorstop or whatever. Is there any possibility of legal language there?
You have to have amounts, so we can change the amounts. But you can't,
So what if they gave us less than that, right? So
yeah,
we're gonna accept 16 million flat, right? Let's say whatever. And still issue a bond for the 6.8 million. That to me is something we could do, right? I guarantee you, we could do the project for $46,000 less. I would want to do that. I guess that's what I'm looking for, just is that flexibility to. Part of me says we should go to the state and have them pay every penny that
Mhm.
they've given every other program, right? And hold their feet to the fire and say, listen, this is what we've always done. Our community passed it, and you owe us, 16,046 and every penny of that. Because we followed this process, we've collaborated with you for the last 18, 20 months. All of that, right? However, that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. I guess I'm looking for some flexibility there. If they say, you know what, you can't have 16,046, but you can have 16 million.
Well, we could change that
we
to
could
16
raise-
million, but then you
well-
would raise the bond by the 46,000 that you reduced that by. So they added up to the total project cost.
Can we have language in there such that
Because ultimately, I
we could
think,
accept less if we reduce the scope of the project or something like that, or if we get other forms of funding?
yeah. So I think to me, what people are gonna be voting on, most importantly, is the bond amount. So I understand why that needs to be exact. I understand why the other ones wouldn't need to either, but again, if they give us a penny less, I'd hate to see the whole project derailed because of legal language and we didn't take the time to do that. I don't have an answer right now, but
So I have a question about
Yeah.
this. How has this been handled by the other school districts who have done this for the past 20 years? Do we know?
Well, some would be like this. I think this was fairly similar to the language that Winnisquam had.
I think it was Wins.
Yeah, Winnisquam was a lot less money that they were looking for, first of all. And then they ended up not getting a bond anyway because and so it was kind of a moot point. In that they were able to sell off a school for 2.5 million and they were able to fund the other million or whatever that they were of their portion through managing the budget or some other means. So
like, could you put a range in there or something? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I think
mhm.
it would be interested.
A range, no, because you have to be able to tell the voters what they're going to be paying or what they should be
Not,
expecting to pay.
not
Yeah,
more than
but I mean,
less than it's gonna be.
To me, the
Right,
bond,
which is where you get your range. That's why you can say, we could get less aid and we bond more, but it gives you the flexibility to bond less if you get more aid. It doesn't work really the other way around.
So
One
you could-
concern I would have is that if we have a not to exceed number that's higher, then that gives the state the flexibility to say, oh, well, we don't have to give them.
yeah, no, I mean, my first thought is, this is.
I mean, I think
Like
part
the
of
way it's
this is
written.
political pressure on the state.
No, and I'm not necessarily thinking it should be changed. I'd just rather have the discussion now. Out in the open, so that if it happens, we can at least say, we've discussed it, we realize this was the risk, and yeah, I think, John, I lean to you. Yes, we deserve every dollar and penny of that. If, we continue to do our work and convincing the community to sign up for this $6.8 million bond, then okay, state legislature, here's your share.
I think that's.
Yep.
That was one of the options for you.
I don't know.
I don't think the way it's worded, you can say if they're only gonna give us 60 million, that we'll accept that, because the way I read it, not less than. So it limits you to say, if they give you, we can't, if they're only gonna give 16, we can't take that.
Yeah, that's what I have a problem with, where I'd like to take it and say, we'll do it for a little less. Right?
Then like John said, are we giving them permission to give us less?
Or is there another? And I guess here's.
I mean, you can do it any numbers in between. You could say 15 million and then raise the other side.
I was wondering about that too. Is there a way, like Winnisquam sold some things, but they also did fundraising? Could we go to?
Well, or they manage to pay it out of either other funds or a budget.
So could we have, as part of our concept, that if there was $1 million shortfall, because they gave us 70% instead of 75, can we, go out to the community and try and raise the funds privately,
Yeah, or cut the scope.
or cut the scope?
Yeah, I think the bond number is important. I don't, my personal opinion is that we've been talking about the 75% for long enough. And it's been, well, it's actually not really 75% because it's, doesn't include site costs, which is all things we've learned along the way. But that cost has slowly creeped up to, close to 7 million, which is a big number. And to me, putting a number of like 12 million on the article would
Discourage a lot of
not
people.
not be a good idea.
Yeah, because
For-
a lot of people would say, oh, that's what they're,
Yeah, I mean,
it's gonna be 12.
it has the appearance of being, disingenuous, even though, this discussion we're having right here, people aren't gonna see that, right? They're gonna see that, oh, they said they were gonna ask for, 6 million, and now they're asking for 12 million. So I'm kind of tied to that number. And actually it just concerns me that we can't accept less than that. But I understand that there's probably legal requirements around it.
So not to throw a wrinkle in it, but can you do both articles?
Yeah.
Can you do both of the articles, and if this one fails, then you present the second article?
Would like,
I don't know as that would do any good, because it's gonna increase what the bond payment's gonna do, but it'll say, if we don't get that much from the state, I don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
no,
don't,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
but I'm not sure it's gonna help. I think people are focused on, they've been hearing the 70% that we're gonna get from the state that we hope to get. I mean, we know we hope to get it, but they've been hearing that so much that,
Yeah, I agree. We can't change that now.
no,
And there's no reason why we shouldn't get.
Yeah.
Less than that.
like, hello, we are part of the state, give us something.
So Carrie, we had another option. Language wise. That was a little different. The numbers weren't much different, but there was some other language and. About allowing the board to. Accept grant, other things, is that correct, or no? Any other federal?
Well, I'm trying to look to see what the difference is in
Yeah,
what he sent, so. In parentheses, it says if the state grant is reduced or unavailable, the appropriation in this article will be reduced. To the amount of the grant or grants actually received plus the amount of the bond. And the additional appropriation for the first years is stated above. Which leaves a possibility if the anticipated is not what we expected.
so it would be kind of
However-
like, to authorize the acceptance of not less than 16 million. To be made up of from New Hampshire Regional Career and Technical Education Funding. Other forms of funding, grant, federal funds, local funds, all that kind of like a sum of funds.
Yeah.
Equaling that.
Right, so the limitation in italics, which is what I read about the funding. States the board is limited to issuing the amount of the bond. And that the appropriation in the article will be reduced if the grant is reduced. But the article would need to be approved by the Department of Revenue Administration. To make sure they will apply it as intended. I'm reading legal counsel's wording. Because they could claim it as not appropriate because it's not some certain, which typically they do require. So, meaning that DRA wants you to specify exactly what it is you're expecting the taxes
But
to
then
be
we
raised
could
and appropriated
We
by.
could revisit it after with the Department of Revenue if it was different.
Right, so what,
Because really,
so my
voting
thought
on
was
acceptance
that,
of the bond. I mean, I know
right,
that's all the
yes.
voters.
So my thought was maybe the board could decide what preference they wanted for the warrant article, and if it didn't pass DRA, have an alternative warrant article that they want to move forward with, so that if the DRA says no to the language I just read, we can go with one of the other ones. Because the bond is supposed to be, amount is supposed to be included in the public notice, and those have to be sent to the papers. So that it meets all the deadlines.
So if we were to go with, a breakdown based on what we thought reasonable, the state coming up with 16 and us coming up with 6,895,000. And then the state were to come back and say, well, we're not gonna give you that much, we're only gonna give you 65%. At that point, could we delay for a year or have a special meeting to see if the community would change, the amount by $1 million or $500,000 or whatever,
Again, or just decrease the size of the project.
or decrease the size of the project? Yeah,
We do have another year to go to vote if we need to. It puts everything a year later. And
Which will cost
costs
more.
change. But yes, that is what I've been recently informed.
But, so, let's play that out. They
Yeah.
say we're gonna give you 15 million instead of this. If we approve the bond, we have to bring that to vote again. Confusing myself now.
Yeah, it's confusing.
You understand what I mean? Let's say we approve this year. Our voters approve this bond amount. The state comes back and say, we're gonna give you less, because that's the scenario that I'm concerned about.
And it's,
Because again, if it was slightly less, I wouldn't want to wait a year. I would want to say,
Decrease the price.
we will find a way to save a small amount of money and continue with the project, or as John stated, we will raise $46,000 to make up the difference, whatever it is. I would hate to I could derail the whole thing to wait a year. I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it would be nice to say that 16, your known amount is your 6.85, right? And that your unknown, your other amount would be made up from a variety of possible areas. You know what I mean?
hopefully from the state, but if not,
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what some of that language means? That Gordon.
That you
provides?
can apply for other aid, yes, which would reduce the bond amount, but it's also saying that we would not accept less than 16,046,000
Right.
of career and technical education funding.
Yeah.
So that's included as part of it. So if you're getting other aid, it would just reduce the bond amount. So you do have to be careful of what you're putting for the career and technical education aid, because if you do get less than that, then that means you're stuck.
It seems weird.
I think the thing is, if you take out the wording, not less. So if you take out the wording that says not less.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna accept. If it's less than that, well, we can still accept it, because you took out the not less.
Yeah, except you're saying you're gonna accept 16 million, so I think you could probably interpret it either way, and I don't know that that would pass.
The DRA.
Right,
Yeah.
it could,
You
it could.
Say,
I mean, I
authorize
just
the
don't
acceptance
know.
of up to 16.
Typically, you can't do that, because then you're not bonding enough. Because what if you get less aid, then your bond amount isn't going to equal.
But it doesn't stop.
Mathematically, you have to be able to add this. Yep. So that it works.
And you're not sure if they'll take the not less if you take it out? It'll be accepted or not?
I don't know that it matters. I don't know if they would accept the not less, but even if you take it out, I don't know that it matters, because you're still leaving a specific amount there.
it's almost redundant.
Yeah, yeah. Some of his, I think there's one here that doesn't have the not less, but you're still saying you're accepting a specific dollar amount.
How sure are we of this dollar amount? Like,
Right, but like
these
you
are all
said,
based on estimates and
if they offered less, then we could still see we can take it.
What
If
did
it
the-
doesn't say not less.
What did the Newport one say? Newport had a much simpler version and it must have passed DRA.
Hmm.
Did you put that one up on the screen even or no? Is that-
Yeah, I probably was the one who sent it, so I could
I
have
have
it.
it right here.
You do?
Yep.
Which one is it? The fourth one.
That's,
I didn't want to order.
but that's what I was like, that something doesn't look
Should have
right.
been a different order, yep.
Yeah, if it's a bond, it's not supposed to be.
Shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $1.8 million?
That's because it's not a bond,
Oh,
so
it's not a
that,
bond?
that's, you can't go by that,
Okay.
Okay. No,
unfortunately,
no,
because bond changes the language
Yeah.
completely.
yep.
no what?
Can we put the language of the bond first? Can we say what the bond amount is and then explain for that? The total and what we anticipate? I mean, would that make a difference, at least in terms of how people view it? It would make a difference. Do you understand?
I understand what you're asking, yes, I just don't know
Hmm.
whether or not that's allowable, because you're supposed to be telling voters how much the total cost is.
Yep.
They may say you can switch it around.
But it doesn't actually matter in terms of that.
Yeah,
less
I
than-
mean, I understand though, because you're trying to draw attention to the bond amount, not the 22 million.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, all the big numbers. are first.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so.
that's about as far as they get with wording like that.
So we're doing two things here. We're authorizing the bond and we're allowing to separate, to accept funds and raise funds. So really three separate things.
Yep. I mean, I think you can, I think Carrie, would it make sense that you can change those numbers to, for instance, say 7 million for a bond and 15 something,
Right, right, that's what I was saying, you can
can
reduce the
change those numbers a little bit.
aid and increase the bond amount as long as the two added together would equal the.
So you could add
150.
151,000 to the other one. And subtract 151,000 from the top one.
Yeah, I'd rather just have the state pay. They should pay, I guess. I'm just concerned about what happens.
I mean, these are all,
Right.
I just, yeah.
I think with
Less than
the
that.
not less than verbiage, you're saying that you can get more than that in aid. And
Right, so that's the advantage of lowering what we expect the state to give us slightly, but
right,
then.
so that you can still get
Then the
more than
voter
that.
sees that the bond is higher. And
Right, they just may not have to. We just wouldn't
And
get the
wait-
bond of 7 million if we got more in aid.
I mean, the other, here's another thought, 20, it could come under budget, it could come under
Yeah.
budget as in 20 million,
mhm.
and if it comes in 20 million, then then there'll be less. There'll be less state aid. Because it'll be paid back to the district every month.
Uh-huh.
You get an invoice every month, you'll send it to them and they'll give you the amount. So if this budget, like you know, if you say the value is gonna be 22,895. And they come under budget. And the actual is 20 million or 19,800 or something like that.
We've already had to take the money that way. How do you ever follow up on that?
Then you just start spending. Right, you add some more windows.
Just leave it as this.
Sorry.
No.
Rooftop solar panels on and. Oh, no.
So, I mean, this pigeonholes here. To a very specific number.
Yeah, sure does. And you can sense that there'd be times where you'd be panicky that you'd be over budget and. Other times that you'd be panicky that you're under budget.
This is a crazy dartboard. This is messed up.
Yeah. It is.
This is absolutely messed up. We are guessing both what the state will do and what the voters will do. And trying to, holy crap.
What
This is-
construction
this is
costs will be.
Utterly.
And the
Yeah, they feel
DRAs,
pretty
you
good.
know, what
They
kind
feel
of-
good that there's enough contingency in here. To handle
Yeah, we'll get. most of what we want.
reasonable, you know, increases over the next year or two. Not 40%. You know, what building, increase in building 40% a couple years back. It's been relatively flat this year. Well, why don't we
Yeah.
move along to another one and we can come back to this as well, as you can think about it.
I mean, I don't think any of us here is. you know, Gonna have the legal knowledge in the next hour to. know.
What the DRA is gonna allow. and-
Yeah, so this is probably,
I mean, you could probably say we'll take draft one, for instance, but would prefer that X, Y, and Z takes place. Can you go back to ask them? I don't know. I mean, we have a kind of a window here.
Right, very small window, so. I could go back and ask certain things, but I
Yeah.
would need to know like what priority,
I-
if this doesn't work, then what.
yeah, I think the
What-
major concern is like, what if they give a little less? Like, what's the process for that? What I'm hearing is that everyone wants to ask for this, you know, the 25% bond.
Mhm.
But it really puts us in a situation if they decide to give just slightly less, so I think that's what we need the answer for. We wouldn't wanna have I don't like the wording of like, if you give us slightly 1 penny less, then the project is done. I think we need to have some flexibility there, that we can continue. You know, even if it doesn't make sense that we need like another vote or something like that, just to. I'll be extreme, but say like if they give us a dollar less.
That could actually disqualify, yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I think is,
And to Lisa's point, you know, there's always gonna be a little bit of this. You know, if this happens, then this has to happen too, and if this doesn't happen, but. Let's face it, there's gotta be a way to do this.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it all works out sensibly. If our voters approve something in March. State's not gonna come back to us and say, well, you know. We only given you $50,000 less, so I guess you can't do the project.
I would hope not. And I would hope that
Right.
that's why I'd rather spend the time now talking about that, so at least we understand that.
Mhm.
Reality and understand like, oh, if they only give us 15 million, what can we, is it really dead?
And it can't be because they wouldn't be able to do business and they've been doing
Yeah,
this for
yeah,
25
yeah.
years, so.
So it's probably not, maybe I'm worrying too much, but I would say we.
Yeah.
And
Keep-
things have
keep
shifted.
They don't
Plus-
want to give us-
And you got a lot of,
Voters-
you got people, you got several places asking for bigger
Yeah.
items.
No, yeah.
We're
So-
competing against a lot more than other places have competed.
Could there be a sentence or another warrant article that says if the state gives less, can we have a special meeting? Yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
It's an
I mean,
option
that's,
too.
if that's necessary.
Right.
Right, and you know, I say if that's necessary, because it seems to me that we're not the first community to face this question.
Um,
There's gotta be a way.
But
This
we're
is-
the last
but I like
community
that
to face the
idea.
question, right? That's the concern, right? We're the last, so it's a different ballgame. The process seems to have been fairly orderly and consistent for the last 25 years, but now they're saying, we don't like this process, we don't want to do it anymore. We're just gonna get, shouldn't be putting words in people's mouths, but my impression is that it's a different ballgame.
And it's also, I mean, we do understand that there's this, like the total size of the ask is larger than it's been too, so
Right.
it's reasonable to expect that.
Yeah, that's the
it could be a
issue.
challenge, right?
It's the ask is bigger than what has been in the past, the culmination of all of
Yeah.
them, you know, put together,
If
the
they
sum
don't
of them.
pass, then they don't pass. but-
And with a state that hasn't increased aid. Period, over a long period of time, right? Building aid, public school, adequacy aid. Things like that, so, and we're competing against other non-school building projects as well.
In line with that, could a sentence be? Should the state not provide 75%, but still a percentage, could we look for alternative funding? So some way to say, yes, we're still gonna get state, yes, the state said this much money. Do we have permission to look elsewhere? That kind of language, so that people didn't think we were just adding on to their tax rate. Should it get random, but still leave it open? I like those numbers. We don't want to be locked in, and what can language, I don't know if it's a separate warrant article, because people, we don't want a special meeting.
Like, why can't that 16046 be a combination of the New Hampshire Regional Career and Technical Education funding? And anything that we could get in the form of donations, that would maybe just give a little bit of flexibility.
That's
Just-
what I thought was
just
like.
to allow us to
that
accept the money.
16.46
Yeah, sure, we'll raise
the
another
sum of
million,
New Hampshire
right?
career and technical
Okay.
education funding and
Alternative.
gifts, whatever else, you know, the other types of revenue.
That at least gives some flexibility.
Alternative types of revenue. So.
Yeah.
You know,
That's,
Private fundraising.
quickly. But it would give us some flexibility.
because in, you know,
Gifts,
you could even
tips.
take $500,000 from your own school budget. If the board decided to.
Right.
To make up that amount. Which I think is what Winnisquam ended up doing. Maybe to the tune of maybe close to $1 million.
Right, and
You
again.
would find a way to make it happen. is
Right.
my point.
Yeah, yes.
I just would hate, we can't be dead in the water if they.
So it's the idea to authorize the acceptance of not less than 1646 of New Hampshire Regional Career and Technical Funding and, you know, funding from the New Hampshire Regional Tech and other forms or whatever like that. So kind of a combination.
Does
of
that
things.
last sentence though negate basically what you're doing? If the district is not awarded the funding, then this
Yeah.
article shall be null and void, like,
That would
does that,
contradict, we'd need to change
Yeah.
that language too.
it would just contradict what you're saying before it.
I think Gordon Jeffries has got to save us. He's our attorney, because, I mean, this is not,
Oh, Gordon Graham. Okay.
is it, what,
Gordon Graham.
Gordon Graham? Oh,
All I heard was
sorry,
Gordon
sorry.
Ramsay, and isn't that like?
Foods on our mind, culinary arts. right?
Why is he coming in?
Yeah,
That might help.
but you know, because these are not unique problems, the question we're trying to answer here is not.
Yeah,
So there's gotta
Just
be a way to do it.
flexibility.
Right,
is
well,
what
it's not just Gordon, it's bond counsel too, and the Department of Revenue, because bond counsel looks very specifically at bond warrant articles, so they can, issue good standing for the district to move forward. If they don't, then we can't even move forward with. So.
Right.
they review a lot
But
of-
he's
a
used
lot
to
of
working with
things.
them too.
He does, he is, yeah. That's correct.
But then you've got the DRA.
Right, and the DRA, and there, the DRA is looking to make sure that your numbers in here are clear so that the voters know what we're raising and appropriating.
Right.
We're not tricking
So-
them.
So I will reach out to them to see if I can. What can be done if we think anything can be done, but I wanna ask, worst case scenario, if they say no to all of that. What does the board want to do?
I think we've got to go forward with this article.
Yeah, I agree.
The other,
With funding this way
Or
or
the other one
with the other one,
with the bond being higher.
right?
I don't think that's gonna fly.
Yeah, I think with the bond number being
The lower
the
amount.
lower amount,
Right.
which we've been saying the whole time, yeah.
yeah,
And if there's a gap there, then again, there's other maybe ways we could figure that out, but to me, it's not the.
Okay.
we'll just put the feet to the fire and say, hey, this is what we want.
No, yeah, I think that's absolutely what we should do.
Yeah.
First things first, I'll get the bond approved.
The Article 4. And any of these cost items like any CBA issues or any anything like that is going to have another article that says, and if it fails, we can go back and have a meeting. That's standard language.
Right.
So we just throw that in there. So this one has to do with the current negotiation addition this year with the JREA. Largely around nursing. Professional nurses in the district. And so while we have not presented on everything that we've negotiated language wise and funding wise, this, and we still need to have ratifications to take place. This is what it would look like over a couple years by changing the salary scale for nurses.
Why is the second year less?
Well, first of all, the first year is the difference between what the CBA, would be budgeted for next year and then what would the additions would be. And the second year
Second year's the same thing.
is the same thing.
So it just
It's-
depends on what the
it-
wage scale was.
It just depends on where people are at and what the wage scale is, but that's often the case.
Okay.
Sometimes the, second year can be less, it all depends. This actually stays very consistent. Often if there's a difference between them.
Good.
Any questions or comments on this one? I think it's one that I know we've discussed previously and that we're all fairly familiar with, so.
It should be very defensible.
Yeah.
And then these last two are ones that we've talked quite a bit about. You may have even already agreed upon this, but this was the taking 50,000 if we have any surplus and putting that into the special education contingency trust fund. And the next one is the same thing. Concept wise anyway, but 400,000 for the capital reserve fund building maintenance trust fund. Now, with this, we met today. Regarding, oh, here we go again. So I'll pull this up. It's fine. Take me a minute. So we were drafting some slides in such a way that we think it is easy to communicate to the community. We have some more complex spreadsheets that have been put together over for a longer period of time, about 10 years. But one, when we communicate with the community, it seems like simple and finite is important. They're not part of every conversation that we have at all of these meetings to understand the intricacies of everything. This is not set in stone, but this will give you an idea of the maintenance trust fund and other things as well, having to do with the school buildings and grounds. So basically, this is a draft, so nothing here is set in stone, but we want to enhance opportunities for the Rindge and Jaffrey communities. How would we do this? Well, we want to provide active, enjoyable experiences for all community members by ensuring our facilities and grounds promote safety and security. We also want to ensure the upkeep and improvement efforts are implemented to increase the facility's efficiency and effectiveness. So we talked about, efficiency really. If we have windows, for instance, that's going to, hopefully result in energy savings, especially now that we have our newer systems for the HVAC and heating. And over in Rindge, also I think a boiler that was put in this past year. And three, to a greater, well, there should be a verb there, but anyway, to create a greater sense of pride, community, and sense of belonging by properly maintaining and strategically improving the district's facilities and grounds. So in general fund, we've stayed fairly consistent year after year. I don't think anyone's suggesting that we go in a different direction that way. Obviously, keeping up with flooring and painting, perhaps doing it in a slightly different way so that you can see that a school gets completed with flooring, like rather than saying, oh, this classroom and this classroom get new carpeting while the rest of you wait another year or two. Let's just do a school. And then the next year, do a school. And then the next year, do a portion of a school and portion of a school. So try to do that. That's what you see with the RMS flooring and the JGS flooring, the CMHS flooring. It will likely have to continue beyond that, but those are some approximate amounts. Painting, that we're actually in a pretty good space right now. The facilities team has really done a lot of painting, but you're going to, as you do some of these flooring jobs and you want to finish up rooms, you're going to have to do some painting and just get on a cycle. We could choose to do one school at a time or not, but painting is a little different than flooring. And then security cameras. Again, this is just putting money in a budget that says we need to continuously look at our security cameras, putting new ones in, but also checking to make sure that the ones that are in existence work properly and are giving us what we need for data. We do have some cameras that when we go back and check them, it seems like there's just blocks of time missing. And that has proven to be difficult on a couple of occasions. Certainly we don't have phenomenal cameras for our to check on the outside of the facilities in many places. Some places are better than others.
When was the last time we updated and installed stuff like that? Has it been
5 years ago?
Yeah.
We had a grant. some of these things we can apply for grants and get them when they come around, even windows, there, when we talk about upgrades, there are sometimes grants that we can apply for. And when, even though I have them in a general fund or a trust fund or whatever like that, we can still go after them and then use the money in different ways.
Yeah, I know it. Certainly in Milipore, we work with Eversource and certain energy providers and can get significant, revenues for some of these projects.
Yep. And then trust fund wise, right now we have about 285,000 in the trust fund. We're seeking, if we have 400,000 remaining, to, increase that at the end of the year to around 600 something. Total expenditures for the year, certainly we'd have to work within what we have. But the hopes would be to go out to bid soon and get the JGS windows all lined up to be able to be dealt with during the summertime. That is the school that is most in need. And that would be all the windows, exterior. And then the RMS entryway and the CMHS lot, parking lot lighting. Those are safety issues as well as aesthetics. And then we had that presentation earlier from the company that I lost their name.
Gail.
Thank you, Gale and Associates.
Everyone else.
Everyone got it. Oh, good. I looked at that document so many times. So Gale and Associates, and looking at the whole, multi-million-dollar scheme that they have for different scenarios. And there are some things I think we can do sooner, or at least while trying to fundraise or look for a bond to do some of this work. In the athletic track, and looking at that, it's about $300,000 they're suggesting, just to take everything down to the pavement and then build it up again. And that will be an 8 to 10 year fix. And then after that, they're saying it's time to redo the entire thing. So that's also the pavement underneath, and that's an expense. But it has lived its life and then some. And so it is time to do that. And there are patches that need to be dealt with. If not, we've got to deal with some of those patches prior to the season starting in the fall. And then the following year, looking at taking a fair amount of money and getting that athletic lighting where the track and current good soccer field is. 550,000 comes from the Gale and Associates document. I thought it was a little bit less. The lighting itself actually is. The poles, however, and so we might be able to, if we have poles and everything all over the place, which we don't, they are expensive. Getting the poles costs almost like 300,000 to get the number of them that you needed, if you look at the document carefully. And then you have other things like internal doors. All the locks need to be changed just for safety and security purposes. Some of these can be ordered differently if we wanted to. Exterior doors. The reason why to do all the interior doors at the exact same time, because if you go to bid, once the people are in your district, you want them to just do the work. You probably, rather than to do it year after year after year. Some of those numbers might be a little bit large, but this is just to say these are the concepts that we think are important, that we need to work with, and we need to get some firmed up numbers. Some of them we already had from an engineering study, and some of them from Gale and Associates, and some of them from just some quotes that we've recently had. But as you go further and further down the road, like these CMHS exterior aluminum doors, finishing those off, it could be less, it could be more. Probably not less.
So I really like this idea of focusing on the safety and security, efficiency, and community image and self-respect.
And this one is the perfect example of that right there. But anyway,
all these, I mean, we're trying at the same time to correct deficiencies, bring the buildings up to date, and prepare them for the next decades.
Yeah. And in this trust fund, you can see that really to do this, and there may be more that needs to be done. And certainly there could be other ways to figure out, like I said, looking for grants and so forth. But you can see that keeping those numbers fairly stable around 850,000 or so every year, rather than having a big increase. It's a lot of money, but these are real things that need to be worked on. The JGS parking lot, we haven't had a lot of conversation yet in facilities. We know it needs to be done, and maybe it could be sooner than what I have there in 28, 29. But it's seemingly getting a bond for that might be difficult. It might be challenging for the amount of work that's happening, especially it just being centered on a Jaffrey Elementary School. That doesn't, without Range getting something at the same time and having some equity or at the same time could be challenging. And maybe doing portions of it year after year as opposed to all in one swoop might be the way to go. Or we can build up to say it's $1 million. We know it's going to be more than $1 million, but say it's $1 million. Maybe we make sure we keep that money in there year after year until we get to that 1.5 or so million that we need.
And part of what we're selling here is not just a request for money, because we're only asking, let's say, for there's something to add to what we already have in the trust fund, 400,000, let's say.
Right.
But what we're doing is we're identifying what are the things that are going to bring our buildings up to snuff, correct problems that come from the past, and also ensure safety and security.
Right.
And as part of that, if funding becomes available, as it becomes available through the state or the federal sources, we can have plans in place and, you know, pre-work done.
Right.
Shovel ready, kind of. So we're not necessarily looking to have all of this funded by the community, although we want to each year put something aside.
Sure. And then for bonds and fundraising, they kind of go hand in hand. So these are just some concepts, some ideas. Maybe we can fundraise for the $1 million of site work that needs to be done. Maybe I mean, it could be for other things. It could be in-kind donations, it could be a lot of things, but you know, that's where the $1 million came from, was funding that wasn't, that the state wasn't going to even consider, you know, doing anything about. And then maybe if we were to look at getting all the work done for the parking, the lights, the turf field on the lower field and the softball field, it's going to be about $6 million to do that in total. Now that's in addition to that other $500,000 lights, and that in addition to that $300,000 track. So that's all the lower field and the parking. That's $6 million. Could we, you know, putting it out a couple of years for that to happen, could it give us enough time to set a goal and actively try to fundraise half of it? So we wouldn't have to have, you know, 6 million of that. I put the 1 million in red and the 3 million in red as kind of like, those are the things we'd subtract from the above numbers. So if possible, if we were successful in really being aggressive at fundraising or finding other revenue sources. These are ideas. They need to be fleshed out a little bit more, need to be, you know, talked about, but the idea of we need to be able to give people just clear, concrete information of what needs to be done, how much it roughly costs, and that the costs keep on, you know, we're going to have to keep on improving the facilities. And why are we doing it? These 3 reasons right here. For the ultimate reason of enhancing opportunities for our kids, for people who are in the community, for people of all ages, improve the community.
And planning for the efficient management of our assets.
Absolutely. So that's what goes into the at least the conversation of that last warrant article.
Can you go over the numbers on that one again? How much I forget how much we were planning on putting in there,
400.
400.
Mhm.
And currently in there is like, say 200 and something.
285.
285.
Any further questions or discussion on any of these? I guess from the board? I don't know if we wanna. Know what the right language is. Should we just maybe approve the draft language of these warrant articles and then I assume we'll come back
Yeah, I think if we go
At a
one by
later-
one,
at a later date. If you want to just go one by one, we can certainly do that.
We
you want to do that?
we can't really come back, can we? What's the timeline?
What do we do?
Right, so
Yeah.
the budget hearing is in January, and that's when any changes to warrant articles that the board has already approved would need to be made during the budget hearing.
Okay.
And then once the budget hearing closes, the board votes to either recommend or not recommend the warrant article. So we need to have the draft available to present at the budget hearing.
So we're just approving the drafts to be presented at the budget hearing now, and then after they're changed or not changed, we'll officially vote.
You would
And
vote
that-
to
and that'll
recommend
be
or
like-
not recommend,
That'll be
right?
like the language at the bottom. Okay.
Okay, so we can approve all of them as drafts to move forward.
To present
Yeah.
during the budget hearing, yep.
And what was the, should know this, but I think for all of us.
Yeah, with the understanding that I will modify it legally
Mhm.
as I need to in preparation for the budget hearing, because at the budget hearing, I need to have what's legally correct.
Well, thank you for putting this work in. I'll make a motion to approve the drafts. To move forward.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I think can we do it all at once or do we?
You can, except that we had a couple drafts for the,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the
yeah.
bond.
Let's just go one by one.
Okay.
No, it's,
But
Well-
we're actually looking to make a third draft for the bond, correct?
right,
Right, so. I-
maybe we can,
approve
Let's
all the drafts that are not bond related. Yeah, not CTE related, and then we can take the CTE one by itself.
unless
Yeah,
anybody
or-
is planning on voting against one of.
Or we can just do
No,
one by
Let's
one.
just go one by one.
Okay.
Stop the discussion.
So Article 3,
So we're gonna
this
do
is the draft budget warrant article.
I'll get my motion for the operating budget one.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second,
Thank you, Christine. Any further questions or discussion? We'll move to vote. All those in favor of approving the draft budget warrant article 3. Please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed and abstentions? So that passes 6-0 to 0. Now we'll move on to,
And excuse me, I'm looking at the numbers real quick, but I'm getting real tired. This is based on the lower operating, the higher default that you presented first. Sorry, it's getting a little loopy enough. I don't wanna be
Oh, yep,
messing up.
that's correct.
can go to the CTE warrant article, which is Article 2. I'll just ask the question. I know that the budget is usually the second article.
If it's a bond, it has to be Article 2.
All right,
Mhm.
I figured you
Yeah.
were right, but I was gonna ask the question. So, I think for this one, right, somebody could make a motion to approve this version of it, right, with the 6.849 million bonds.
I would make a motion to approve CTE warrant article draft number 1.
All right, thank you, John.
Number 1 or number 2?
Number one.
We're choosing number 1?
Who said? Kim, and seconded. All right. Any further questions or discussion?
What is the difference between the two, like how, like what Lisa was just saying, like how do we,
The second one has like $12 million.
Oh, draft one, draft two,
Yeah.
got you.
So we're approving draft one.
Yeah, yeah.
Or proposing to.
Got it.
approve.
Approving draft one, but want us to go back and
Yeah,
Change it later.
change it.
yeah, I'm still second, yeah.
Any further questions or discussion? We'll bring to a vote. All those in favor of approving CTE warrant article draft number 1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0. Move on to Article 4, the draft CBA warrant article.
I make a motion to approve draft CBA warrant article number 4.
Thank you, Christine.
And second that.
Thank you, Sandy. Any further questions or discussion? We'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the draft CBA warrant article 4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0. Go to Article 6.
Oh, because Article 5 would be going back. to-
I have it here if you want to just ask them. It's if Article 4, the CBA warrant article is defeated to allow the governing body to have a special meeting to address article or cost items only.
I'll motion to accept that draft.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second,
Thank you, Christine. Any questions or discussion? We will vote. All those in favor of approving the language in Article 5, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed and abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0. And we'll move to Article 6, the draft Student Services Trust warrant article.
I move we approve the draft Student Services Trust warrant article as presented.
Thank you, Sandy.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any further questions or discussion? We'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the draft Article 6, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed and abstentions? That also passes by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0. We'll go to Article 7, the draft Maintenance Trust warrant article.
I make a motion to approve the draft maintenance trust warrant article number 7.
Thank you, Christine.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any questions or discussion? We'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the draft Article 7, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? Passes as well by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0. So that is all, I believe.
We have important dates. January 10th, the last day for petition warrant articles for proposing bonds in excess of $100,000. January 14th, last day for petition warrant articles other than bonds in excess of $100,000 and collective bargaining. January 22nd, first day of filing period for candidates. Positions available: the district moderator, 1 board member from Jaffrey, 1 board member from Ringe, and 1 at-large board member. And then January 31st is the last day of filing period for those candidates.
I have a question. Do we still need to do the draft budget warrant article number 3?
That's the first,
The first one.
that was
Just vote on
the CTE. I'm
No,
sorry, Article 3 is the budget.
the budget.
Yeah, we voted on that one.
Oh, we did.
Yep.
Oh, I know. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering that too.
I think we did, right?
goodness.
We did.
Because Lisa asked the question.
Okay. Okay.
We did it.
Here we go again.
So headed back to the agenda. Files open here. But next we have board committee updates. And I will start with John. He will tell us about the facilities meeting today, I'm sure.
Right, we had a facilities meeting today. We focused it on the capital improvements plan. We've talked a bit about it here today, but you know, what we're looking at is trying to convey to our community that there are things that have to be done. We're not gonna ask them to fund them all now, but we want to make sure that there's an awareness. And also that awareness includes the notion that we're trying to maintain our facilities, that we're trying to improve them, bring them up to date, increase our sense of satisfaction in the buildings, facilities we have available. And that we want to be ready so that when funding opportunities come along, we can jump on them like we did with the ESSER funding that you know, other funds that have been available in the past.
Thank you, John. Kim, anything?
No education updates for December.
Christine?
No, education committee didn't meet, so.
Excellent. Lisa?
Policy is gonna be meeting this Wednesday. And finance is meeting on Thursday, as far as I know. Are we meeting this Thursday?
It's a good question. Are we meeting? For some reason
I have it on my.
Finance?
I didn't think we were because. of
Finance,
budget.
no,
Finance not this Thursday?
I don't believe so.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Charlie's.
I think we had moved it.
I have it on for the third Thursday.
I don't recall what we decided. For some reason, I was thinking we weren't having it, but yeah. Yeah, I don't have it on the calendar.
I think it was removed.
Cool. Got a meeting, I'll take it.
Very good. We didn't have any discussion items. Somebody's gonna jump in with one, so we will open it up for the second session of public comments. So at this time, I'll encourage anybody that wishes to make a public comment or our policy that's on the screen, that is online, please raise your hand. You can have the floor. Seeing nothing. We'll move to board matters. I did not have anything specific, and I didn't hear from anybody to have anything on the agenda. I think everyone knew we were going to have a lengthy budget discussion tonight, so. Maybe what we got accomplished there, so there's one last item on the agenda is adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kim. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions, so that passes 6-0, and we are adjourned.
All right.
Good job, Chris.
Yeah.